What's up guys, BltzZ here today bringing you another video. Today's video I want to talk about the roadmap and story Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2 will take. Maybe. Spoiler warnings for those of you guys who have not played the original game of Final Fantasy 7. We're going to be talking about some major story points, so click away and protect your cheeks if you don't want the surprises to be ruined, and also to avoid the ultimate clappage. The support and discussions we've been having on the previous videos have been insane. It's been a blast chatting with you guys all about Final Fantasy 7, and I look forward to even more of that from this video and series. First and foremost, these are just my thoughts and ideas of how I think Remake Part 2 would go. They definitely could change up a lot and go in a completely different direction. There are so many different ways they can take this. But I want to talk about the overall generic route and the potential they could have with Remake's changes that were implemented. This video just might be the first part of many in a series, since I want to go into extra detail about this and the directions that they could take in Remake Part 2. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with these, or what do you think will happen instead. Now with all that being said, let's get into this video. In a previous video, we talked about what the beginning of Remake Part 2 would be like. We also talked about how Remake Part 2 just might end. Obviously, there is so much more in between, which is what makes this game so good to many of us. And I want to talk about all that good stuff, and what we could expect to see in Remake Part 2, and what could possibly be skipped, or what else they could add into Remake 2. Starting off with the way Part 2 might start, there are two ways I think they could go about it. Since the last we see of the gang are them walking into the wasteland after leaving Midgar, we know from the original game they are heading to a nearby town named Calm, to meet up at the inn and hear about Cloud's story about Sephiroth. But I was thinking that when Remake Part 2's story starts up, like in the opening credits, maybe it'll start off with a battle. It's dark, it's raining, we hear a monster growling, and then fire shoots out of nowhere. The camera pans and we see Sephiroth is unfazed in battle going up against a giant dragon. Sephiroth dodges the dragon's attacks with ease while Cloud watches nearby. Then the game starts its tutorial and allows us to play as Sephiroth against this dragon. It also teaches us the new movement options, button layouts to know in the new game. We also can switch between Sephiroth and Cloud during the tutorial, and Sephiroth clearly outclasses Cloud and defeats the dragon, and suddenly it flashes to the inn at Calm, where Cloud is telling a story about Sephiroth's power and their mission together going back to Nibelheim. The flashback starts up and takes us through the Nibelheim events as Cloud tells the story to the party, while Tifa is feeling uneasy for a reason yet unknown to us at this time, but this will get explained much later in the story. Now, the other way that they could start off Remake Part 2 is we get a shot of an enemy running away in the outskirts of Midgar. Something is chasing it, and the camera is in like a feral perspective chasing said enemy. The enemy makes it quite a distance away, but the thing chasing it has caught up, and we are in a battle as Red 13 now versus a random world encounter enemy. This is Square's apology for not allowing us to play as the best boy in Remake Part 1. We right off the bat get to control Red 13, and the tutorial is showing us just how to control him and how his attacks work, etc. The party members show up and we're able to eventually switch to them between Barret, Cloud, and the others, and maybe they implement the system from Final Fantasy X where we can control and switch between any party member during the battles. That I've been wishing for quite some time now, and I really do hope they consider that. I wouldn't mind either of these, to be honest, when it comes to Remake Part 2's opening. The rest of the scene will play out as the party catches up to Red 13. He apologizes for rushing ahead, but he could not let the prey escape, and I imagine some humorous banter between Red and Barret would occur right here. Then the gang makes their way to Calm to the inn to follow the original game and have Cloud tell us the story of how he and Sephiroth went back to Nibelheim all those years ago. But something different happens here. Cloud gets a notification on his phone which interrupts his story, and he checks the message, and it says that only 19.3% of you guys that watch these videos are currently subscribed. Guys, we're doing a PlayStation 5 giveaway that will end in about 20 days from now. So hurry up and get your entries in so you don't miss out on that, and click the Gleam link in the pinned comment below so you can get those entries in. Being a subscriber helps the channel out a ton, and also being a member on the channel gets you more chances to win the giveaway, while also getting exclusive emojis and perks to use in our comments section and live streams. Don't miss out on a chance to win a free PlayStation 5, guys. I'm rooting for you all. But after the flashbacks, we are able to walk around Calm and interact with the residents here. Maybe some of the residents can give us some Easter eggs warning us about a ninja who has been spotted nearby stealing people's stuff, which would reference and warn us of the next playable character, Yuffie. Inside Calm, we also come across a familiar character with Chadley, who once again thanks Cloud for helping him realize his true happiness or goals or some shit. Chadley tells us the materia that he created for us in Part 1 are actually synthetic and much weaker in comparison to the real potent materia you can find in the real world. This means that the summoned materials that we have are much weaker in comparison to the real deal we may come across. He also probably gives us a VR helmet in a portable form for us to use in the wild now instead of having to report to him every time to use it in a town. He most likely will still appear in every city, but we could have access to other things through him, such as chocobo stables, valuable items we can go create stuff with. The addition of Chadley can can go in any direction really, in my opinion, and I think he can be a great asset for Final Fantasy VII Remake's open world in Part 2 and future iterations. And now after leaving Calm, we immediately are introduced to the open world and how the map mechanics work. The next area would be the Chocobo Farm side quest in order to capture a Chocobo to cross the marshlands. This would introduce the first form of transportation to us in the open world of Final Fantasy VII Remake. We're able to capture unstable chocobos for us to use, but of course at a very expensive price. This way they could balance out the exploration. During this segment, the gang probably comes across people nearby who warn them about the Midgard-Zolom and to not cross the marshlands. Barret probably doesn't care about the warning and urges the party to go on. As we continue into the marshlands, the Midgard-Zolom begins to make an appearance and everyone is absolutely terrified, including Barret, because he has a huge phobia of snakes. No, I'm just kidding, but if they added that in there, that would be actually pretty funny and awesome, similar to how Vegeta in Dragon Ball is grossed out and scared of worms, of all things. The party is forced out of the marshlands and try to find another way around, but they come across the Chocobo farmhouse. This family at the Chocobo farm charges crazy high prices very early on at this point in the game when you are broke as hell. But I do hope the player has the option to bypass the Chocobo missions and just going straight into the marshlands to trigger the boss battle against the Midgard-Zolom, which becomes this huge cinematic experience with crazy action set pieces too. Square can be really creative with this segment and really have multiple ways for the player to go about it, because this fight can be very difficult, especially early on without the elemental materia from the original game. But at this point we would have 2 elemental materias, so I hope it retains its difficulty and is still a huge task to take down the Zolom. This way, after the battle, we are treated to the original game's moment where we see another Midgard-Zolom, but it's absolutely torn to shreds and stabbed on top of a tree. This is where the party is supposed to be shocked at Sephiroth's strength in comparison to theirs, and how hard their battle was against the Zolom, but Sephiroth absolutely manhandles this Zolom by himself. I can still see this happening because Cloud got embarrassed by the real true Sephiroth at the end of Remake Part 1 and has seen his real powers and what he's capable of. He would be on high alert warning the party about this. They have no idea what his true powers are like and they would not want to take him lightly, which could be even further explained better through how they handle the Nibelheim flashbacks. I also can't see Barret disagreeing here, especially with how easily Sephiroth clapped his cheeks in Part 1. And after the Zolom encounter, the gang makes their way through the Mithril Mines, the first dungeon encounter. And here, there are all sorts of new materials and enemies and different paths you can take to get all the items and treasures. This could also be extended even further by having another boss encounter show up here at the end against the Turks. Because in the original game, we come across the Turks at the end of the cave's exit. And we are introduced to a new Turk member, Elena, who is filling in for the recently injured Reno. In the original game, Reno is hurt from the fight before Sector 7's plate crash. Reno didn't seem to have much injuries in the ending of Remake's cutscene in Shinra's building, so I think Reno would still be present here, including Rude, as I would love to see his reactions towards seeing Tifa. Maybe this could be a boss fight against Song and Elena, which would be different because we never actually see how Song fights in the original game. This could be a great twist early on. Midway through the fight, they are interrupted by a phone call, and the Turks, Song, and Elena are on their way out. Elena speaks loudly and informs us of their plans to go to Junon in search of Sephiroth, and Song reprimands her for it, just like in the original game. Also, someone in the comments of a video a long time ago brought up the possibility that maybe Elena, in addition to being a Turk, is also Leslie's girlfriend that he's been searching for and trying to track down. Maybe she was an undercover Turk the whole entire time, which would explain her disappearance. Shoutouts to whoever said this in the comments. My bad, I wish I can give you some credit because that is a really cool idea, which I think could be very possible. After we leave the caves, we are ambushed by none other than Yuffie, who makes off with most of our materia before Tifa stops her from getting away. We are forced into another fight without materia, this time against Yuffie. After beating her, she apologizes and realizes how strong we are, which to her means she may come across even more stronger materia along the way, so she decides to smeagol her way into the party. And now we are given a tutorial to play as Yuffie and understand her moves and how she controls. Once that is over, she can finally join the party. New character has been introduced. After getting Yuffie, in the original game, we have the option to continue the story to Junon, chasing Sephiroth, Shinra, and the Turks, or we can go to everyone's favorite minigame side mission, Fort Condor. I don't see Yuffie or Fort Condor being a missable interaction in Remake Part 2. Everyone remembers Fort Condor and how annoying the minigame was to deal with, but in Remake Part 2, the combat for Fort Condor could instead be a recreation of the original turn-based combat for Final Fantasy VII's main battle system. This would be a cool little Easter egg and make it much more enjoyable without having to do that quick battle exploit. And the character models could also mimic the original PlayStation 1 models of Final Fantasy VII. After Fort Condor is done, we can get more backstory from the people of Fort Condor talking about the planet and their negatives towards Shinra, which immediately appeals to Barrett and he loves them. After Fort Condor, we make our way over to Junon, and the whole town at the base of Junon is in a frenzy. Everyone hears that Rufus Shinra is in town and it's actively freaking out. As we get there, we are told about this parade coming up which involves Rufus Shinra before he takes the boat to the next continent. The gang hears this and devises a plan to get onto the ship. The people of this town don't trust the party right away and think that they are a part of Shinra, and they are not very open to them in the beginning, with them being outsiders. Some of them even recognize Cloud's outfit as a member of Soldier. During some downtime, Cloud and the others take a trip to the beach nearby, and there's a little girl named Priscilla playing near the shallow end calling out to her friend. As Cloud and them get closer to Priscilla, she starts to scream and sees her friend Mr. Dolphin is being attacked by a giant fish monster, Bottomswell. She runs out to defend Mr. Dolphin and gets swept into the tides, and the party has no choice but to intervene and help. So a boss fight starts up here. For the most part with Remake, they've absolutely given bosses and even throwaway enemies like the Hell House some great crazy representation. I can only imagine Bottomswell will get that too. This boss retains their bubble freezing attack like how Reno had his pyramids too in Remake. Then after this fight, we just might have that CPR minigame, but it's revamped a little bit more. Maybe it also utilizes the haptics and the trigger support on the new PlayStation 5 controller as well. And after that whole segment, the townspeople hear all about what Cloud and the others did for them, and they are so happy and much more open to them being around. And a few side missions actually open up because of this. And after completing a few of these side missions, we are taken to Priscilla to see that she has fully recovered. And she talks to us about her family having a sacred materia in their possession. Her grandfather recommends to her to give us the materia as it may do us well in the future. And we get the Shiva materia just like in the original game. But you guys might be wondering, why are we getting the same Shiva materia we've already had from Chadley? But as I said before, the materia that Chadley made for us was weaker and synthetic man-made materia, which lacks the potent power that these world-found materias actually have. This Shiva, for example, could be used in any fight and does not need to be against bosses or bigger arena enemies. She also has more utility and more flexibility in combat, but there is also so many other mechanics for the battle system Square could even implement for summons, but we're gonna have to talk about that in another video. And speaking of that wraps it up for this video, guys. There is still a lot more left to cover in my opinion. I think Remake Part 2 just might go a little further than a lot of people think. I want to spread these videos out for you guys to enjoy. It was a bit daunting to put all of this in one video, so I decided to split it up and make a series out of it. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think about all of this. Again, it's obvious there could be so many more changes. We're not even covering half of them that could be made. But I think many of these scenarios are very possible and most likely can occur. But of course, nothing is set in stone and everything is subject to change. These videos have been bringing up amazing discussions in our recent videos, and I want to keep that trend going with you all. Make sure you guys get those PS5 giveaway entries in, because you don't want to miss out on that. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you are new. More Final Fantasy VII Remake videos are coming your way, and you won't want to miss part 2 of this one coming right at you. My name is BltzZ, and thanks for watching.